So I've had a long career in multiple industries. If you list my mistakes, honestly, I might sound like the worst person on earth, but if you weigh those against the things I've done right, it makes much more sense. The value of being inspired is very much underrated, no question about it. But I want to be clear, I'm not trying to be anyone's savior. That is not my goal. I'm just trying to think about the future and not be sad. For me, it's simply this. This is something that is important to get done, and we should just keep doing it or die trying. I don't need a source of strength, so quitting is not even an option. It's just not in my nature. I don't care about optimism or pessimism. We're going to get it done, like this video, to support this channel. Tesla was under the most relentless short seller attack in the history of the stock market. Tesla was the most shorted stock in the history of stock markets. This was affecting our ability to hire people and sell cars. It was terrible. They wanted Tesla to die so badly they could taste it. Well, most of them have paid the price. Where are they now? Just work like hell. Put in 80 to 100-hour weeks every week. All those things improve the odds of success. People say, tell me, what can you do to encourage entrepreneurs to start companies? I'm like, if you need encouragement, don't start a company. We basically messed up almost every aspect of the Model 3 production line, from sales to packs to motors, the body line, the paint shop, final assembly. Everything was messed up. I lived in the Fremont and Nevada factories for 3 years, fixing that production line, running around like a maniac through every part of that factory, living with the team. I slept on the floor so the team going through a hard time could see me on the floor. They knew that I was not in some ivory tower, experiencing the pain they were. I had it more. There wasn't any other way to make it work. Those 3 years of hell, 2017, 18, and 19, were the longest period of excruciating pain in my life. There wasn't any other way, and we barely made it. We were on the ragged edge of bankruptcy the entire time. Do you feel that this challenge of figuring out the new way of manufacturing gives you an edge now that it's different? That you figured out how to do this at this point? I think I know more about manufacturing than anyone currently alive on Earth. I can tell you how every part of that car is made. I'm not afraid of dying. I think it will come as a relief. Although you may not be able to see the vision of SpaceX come true in your life, I'd like to live long enough to see that. Being at a net worth of roughly $230 billion and perceived as the richest person, do you know John Law? I don't know John Law. He used to be the richest person on Earth 300 years ago. A poker player, a gambler, the biggest art collector on Earth, many superlatives. In the end, he went bankrupt. It's a pretty far fall. Did you ever think about that option? That something could go wrong and that you could one day lose everything? There have been many times where I expected to lose everything. Who thought a car company and a rocket company would succeed? Certainly not me. I thought they both had less than a 10% chance of success. If I go bankrupt, fine, I don't care. So many people, so many young people from across the globe, if you have advice for them, young people globally who want to be like Elon Musk, what's your advice to them? I think that probably they shouldn't want to be me. It sounds better than it is. It's not as much fun being me as you'd think. It could be worse, for sure. Starting a company is really hard. You have to be prepared to work constantly, from when you wake up to when you go to sleep. You have to be willing to deal with a lot of difficult problems and thorny problems. You have to be willing to deal with an enormous amount of stress, and you just got to push yourself super hard. I wouldn't recommend it for most people. Try to be useful. Do things that are useful to your fellow human beings, to the world. It's very hard to be useful. Are you contributing more than you consume? Try to have a positive net contribution to society. That's the thing to aim for, not to try to be a leader just for the sake of being a leader. A lot of times the people you want as leaders are other people who don't want to be leaders. SpaceX, Tesla, Neuralink, the boring company, and philanthropy. If you say philanthropy is the love of humanity, they are philanthropy. Tesla is accelerating sustainable energy. This is love of humanity. SpaceX is trying to ensure the long-term survival of humanity as a multi-planetary species. This is love of humanity. Neuralink is helping solve brain injuries and existential risk with AI. Love of humanity. The boring company is trying to solve traffic, which is a health issue for most people, and that also is love of humanity. I'd encourage people to read a lot of books. Just read. Try to ingest as much information as you can and try to develop a good general knowledge. so you at least have a rough lay of the land of the knowledge landscape. Try to learn a little bit about a lot of things because you might not know what you're really interested in. How would you know what you're really interested in if you aren't doing a peripheral exploration of the knowledge landscape broadly? Talk to people from different walks of life, different industries, professions, skills, and occupations. Just try to learn as much as possible. Searching for meaning isn't the whole thing, a search for meaning. What's the meaning of life and all? Just generally, I would encourage people to read broadly in many different subject areas and then try to find something where there's an overlap of your talents and what you're interested in. People may be good at something or have skill at a particular thing, but don't like doing it. You want to find something where you have a good combination of things you're inherently good at and like doing. When you had that third failure in a row, did you think, I need to pack this in? Never. I don't ever give up. I mean, I'd have to be dead or completely incapacitated. The longer you do anything, the more mistakes you will make cumulatively. If you sum up those mistakes, it will sound like I'm the worst predictor ever. For example, for Tesla vehicle growth, I said I think we'd do 50% and we've done 80%. They don't mention that one. I'm not sure what my exact track record is on predictions. They're more optimistic than pessimistic, but they're not all optimistic. Some of them are exceeded, probably more or later, but they do come true. It's very rare that they do not come true. I don't aim to disrupt for the sake of disrupting. It's more like thinking about what set of actions are most likely to lead to a better future. One of the things, obviously, for humanity to have a compelling future, a civilization must have a clear path to a sustainable energy future. That's one of the things that I think everyone would agree with. I'm not someone who tends to demonize oil and gas. To be clear, this is necessary right now, or civilization could not function. I do think we actually need more oil and gas, not less, but simultaneously moving as fast as we can to a sustainable energy economy. I was living in the factory in Fremont and the one in Nevada for 3 years straight. That was my primary residence, not kidding. Did you keep the couch? I actually stepped on a couch at one point in a tent on the roof, but for a while I was just sleeping under my desk, which is out in the open in the factory. It was damn uncomfortable sleeping on that floor. When I woke up, I'd smell like metal dust. I stopped using the couch in the conference room because I wanted the team to see me during shift change with nothing. They knew I was there, and that made a huge difference. They gave it their all. What kind of characteristics does an entrepreneur need or have to be someone like you? I think certainly you need to be very driven and have a high pain threshold. You are reported by Forbes and everyone else as now the world's richest person. That's not a sovereign, you know. I think it's fair to say that if somebody is like the king or de facto king of a country, they're wealthier than I am. But it's just harder to measure. But what people do, so $300 billion, your net worth on any given day is rising or falling by several $billion. How insane is that? How do you handle that psychologically? Very few people in the world have to think about that. I actually don't think about that too much, but the thing that is actually more difficult and does make sleeping difficult is that every good hour or even minute of thinking about Tesla and SpaceX has such a big effect on the company. I really try to work as much as possible to the edge of sanity because every good, high-quality minute of thinking is $1 million impact on Tesla. One of the biggest mistakes people generally make, and I'm guilty of it too, is wishful thinking. You want something to be true even if it isn't, so you ignore the things that are the real truth because of what you want to be true. This is a very difficult trap to avoid. Like I said, it's one that I find myself having problems with, but if you just take that approach of always being to some degree wrong and your goal is to be less wrong, a challenge for entrepreneurs is to say, what's the difference between really believing in your ideals and sticking to them versus pursuing some unrealistic dream that doesn't actually have merit? That is a really difficult thing to tell. Can you tell the difference between those two things? You need to be very rigorous in your self-analysis. You guys are the magicians of the 21st century. Nothing holds you back. Imagination is the limit. Go out there and create some magic. What does Elon have to say about how he takes risks? I literally just try to use the scientific method and consider the importance of the outcome and what you are risking to achieve that outcome. If the outcome is important enough, even if the probability of success is low, one must still do it. Some things are very important to have a good future, and if we don't do them, we're in big trouble. So, how much of a risk is it really? Because if we don't take those actions, we won't have a good future. I think the riskiest thing would be no action. I put a lot of stock and certainly have a lot of respect for someone who puts in an honest day's work to do useful things and just generally have a not zero-sum mindset or a grow the pie mindset. If you sort of say when the pie is fixed, the only way to have more pie is to take someone else's pie. But this is false. The pie has grown dramatically over time, the economic pie. So you really want to make sure you're not operating from a zero-sum mindset where the only way to get ahead is to take things from others. That's going to result in trying to take things from others, which is not good. It's much better to work on adding to the economic pie. When I interview somebody, my interview question is always the same. I say, tell me the story of your life and the decisions that you made along the way and why you made them. Then tell me about some of the most difficult problems you worked on and how you solved them. That question is very important because the people that really solve the problem know exactly how they solved it. They know the little details, and the people that pretended to solve the problem can maybe go one level and then get stuck. Are you happy at the moment? I think there are degrees of happiness. Certainly to be fully happy, I think you have to be happy in work and happy in love. I suppose I'm medium happy. There are degrees of happiness. Can love or projects for work compensate for love among people? I think love of work and my experience could at best make one halfway happy. What was your biggest challenge in life? One of the biggest challenges is making sure you have a corrective feedback loop, and then maintaining that corrective feedback loop over time, even when people want to tell you exactly what you want to hear. That's a very difficult challenge. Subscribe to Kelvin Yossi for more videos. Thanks for watching.